What if I told you that the final goodbye to Yu Menglong wasn't just a farewell, but a revelation? The air was thick with incense and silence. Cameras were banned. Phones were sealed. Invitations were handwritten, not printed. And yet, what happened behind those closed doors has sent whispers across the industry, whispers of hidden letters, silent rivalries, an unexpected confession, and a final message no one saw coming. Tonight, you're not just watching a tribute. You're stepping into a story layered with mystery, emotion, and secrets that left even the closest friends stunned. By the end of this video, you'll uncover the symbolic moments that shook the room, the emotional reactions that sparked speculation, and the final act that changed how fans will remember him forever. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear goes far beyond a simple farewell. The morning of the ceremony arrived under a grey, unmoving sky. It wasn't storming. It wasn't sunny. It was as if the world itself had paused in hesitation. The venue was elegant yet understated, white lilies lining the entrance, a long red carpet fading into soft candlelight. There were no grand billboards, no oversized portraits screaming fame. Instead, a single black and white photograph stood at the center. Yu Menglong smiling softly, eyes calm, almost knowing. Those who entered did so quietly. Some wore dark sunglasses not for style, but for protection from cameras, from speculation, from breaking down. A-list celebrities who once shared the spotlight with him walked in with lowered heads. Directors who had shaped his career stood near the back, hands clasped tightly. But it wasn't the famous faces that made the atmosphere heavy. It was the tension. Because rumors had already begun circulating before the ceremony even started. A sealed envelope had been delivered to the venue at dawn. No sender. No return address. Only 3 words written in ink, open after goodbye. No one knew what it contained, but everyone felt its presence. It rested on a small wooden table near the podium, guarded discreetly yet noticeably. And from that moment, the funeral became more than a farewell, it became a question. The ceremony began without dramatic music or flashing lights. A close friend stepped forward first. His voice trembled, but he didn't cry. Instead, he spoke about Yu Menglong's quiet resilience. About how he would rehearse long after others had gone home. About how he once refused to leave a set until a junior actor nailed a difficult scene. These were not the stories of a distant star. They were stories of someone deeply invested in the people around him. But then something unexpected happened. Halfway through the speech, the friend paused. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn bracelet. The room shifted. Murmurs rippled like a sudden gust of wind. The bracelet was simple, brown leather, slightly faded. Fans would recognize it instantly. Yu Menglong had worn it in interviews, in behind-the-scenes clips, even during award ceremonies. It had become almost symbolic of his grounded personality. The friend held it up and said, "He told me if anything ever happened, this should be returned, because it was never really his." Returned to whom? No explanation followed. He simply placed the bracelet beside the photograph and walked away. Speculation ignited instantly. Was it a lost love? A forgotten promise? A chapter of his life never revealed to the public? And then came the moment no one was prepared for. The envelope. The host approached it slowly, as if aware that opening it would shift the entire tone of the ceremony. The seal broke with a soft tear. Inside was not a single letter but multiple pages, neatly folded. The first page was handwritten. "If you're hearing this," it began, "then I hope you're not crying too much." A faint gasp echoed through the hall. It was unmistakably his handwriting. The letter wasn't dramatic. It wasn't filled with regret. Instead, it carried gratitude. He thanked his fans for their patience during his quiet periods. He thanked his colleagues for challenging him. He even joked about unfinished projects, saying, "Maybe somewhere else, I'll finally get the ending right." But buried in the second page was a line that froze the room. "There's a truth I never shared, not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to protect someone." Protect someone from what? The letter didn't name anyone. It didn't elaborate. It simply moved on, speaking about growth, mistakes, and learning to forgive oneself. But that single sentence was enough to spark countless theories. Then came the final page. It wasn't a letter. It was a list. 5 names. No context. No explanation. 5 individuals seated in that very room. The camera crews weren't allowed inside, but insiders later described the tension as electric. Those 5 names belonged to people from different chapters of his life: a co-star from his breakout drama, a producer he once clashed with publicly, a childhood friend rarely seen in public, and 2 individuals who had never been linked to him before. Why were their names listed? The host's voice shook as he read the final instruction written beneath them. Thank them for me. They know why. And just like that, the mystery deepened. As the ceremony continued, something else happened that no one anticipated. A short video began playing on a hidden screen behind the floral arrangements. It wasn't professionally edited. It looked personal. Candid clips of laughter between takes. Moments of frustration during rehearsals. Quiet piano melodies recorded late at night. But in the final seconds of the video, Yu Menglong looked directly into the camera and said, "If you're watching this, then remember me with joy, not questions." Not questions. Yet questions were exactly what he left behind. Outside the venue, fans gathered in silence. Many held handwritten letters of their own. Some lit candles. Others simply stood, as if waiting for clarity. Social media erupted with speculation about the bracelet, the 5 names, and the cryptic line about protecting someone. But perhaps the most astonishing moment of the day came after the formal goodbye. As guests began leaving, the 5 individuals whose names were listed did not exit immediately. They remained seated, speaking quietly among themselves. Witnesses described a mixture of shock and understanding passing between them. At one point, the childhood friend wiped away tears and nodded, as if finally accepting something long unresolved. Was it reconciliation? Closure? A shared secret? No official statement followed. Days later, one of the 5 posted a single sentence online: "I forgive you. And I hope you forgave yourself." The internet exploded. Old interviews were dissected. Past interactions analyzed frame by frame. Fans revisited moments where Yu Menglong had seemed hesitant, thoughtful, almost burdened. Suddenly, everything felt layered with hidden meaning. But here's where the story takes an even more unexpected turn. A week after the funeral, a charity foundation quietly announced a new scholarship in his name. The details were subtle but powerful. It would support aspiring actors from small towns, specifically those who couldn't afford professional training. The funding? Anonymous. Yet insiders revealed something extraordinary. The paperwork for this foundation had been signed months earlier. Carefully arranged. Thoughtfully structured. This wasn't a spontaneous tribute. It was planned. He had prepared not only for goodbye but for impact. And perhaps that's the real secret revealed at the funeral. Not scandal. Not rivalry. Not hidden romance. Intention. Every symbolic gesture, the bracelet, the list of names, the handwritten letter, pointed to unfinished emotional threads. Not messy ones. Meaningful ones. He wasn't exposing secrets. He was tying them up. The bracelet, many now believe, belonged to the childhood friend. A reminder of simpler days before fame complicated everything. Returning it symbolized returning to authenticity. The 5 names. Not enemies. Not conspirators. But pivotal figures who shaped him through conflict, love, mentorship, or challenge. The line about protecting someone? Perhaps a silent acknowledgement of a relationship kept private to shield it from public scrutiny. We may never know the full truth. And maybe that's the point. Because in the end, the funeral didn't reveal scandal. It revealed depth. It showed a man aware of his journey. A man who understood the weight of fame, the cost of silence, and the importance of gratitude. It showed someone who chose mystery not to confuse, but to preserve dignity. And maybe that's why the ceremony felt so unforgettable. It wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was deliberate. The final image described by attendees stays with me the most. As the candles burned lower and the crowd thinned, a soft breeze moved through the open doors. The photograph at the center shifted slightly, not falling, not tilting dramatically, just enough to catch the light differently. For a brief moment, his smile seemed brighter. Not haunting. Peaceful. So what were the real secrets revealed that day? That success doesn't erase vulnerability. That silence can hold protection, not shame. That gratitude can outshine gossip. And that sometimes, the most powerful message isn't in what's explained, but in what's intentionally left unsaid. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect on the unseen layers behind public lives, then don't just watch and scroll away. Share your thoughts below. What do you think the bracelet meant? Who do you believe he was protecting? And if you could leave one message behind for the world, what would it say? Because stories like this aren't just about endings. They're about the echoes we choose to leave behind. And long after the candles fade and the whispers quiet, one thing remains undeniable. The farewell may have been final, but the mystery is eternal. The envelope. That's where everything changed. Not the flowers. Not the speeches. Not even the tears. It was that single sealed envelope resting quietly beside the portrait of Yu Menglong that transformed a farewell into something unforgettable. Let's go deeper into that moment, because what happened when it was opened didn't just shake the room, it shifted the narrative of his entire life. The ceremony had been moving in a calm, almost controlled rhythm. Soft instrumental music floated in the background. Incense curled into the air like fading memories. Guests stood one by one, offering polished tributes. Everything felt dignified, structured. But the envelope sat there like a ticking clock. No one mentioned it at first, yet everyone was aware of it. Eyes drifted toward it between speeches. Some avoided looking at it altogether, as if afraid of what it might contain. When the host finally stepped toward it, the air felt heavier. Conversations stopped instantly. Even the subtle shuffling of fabric and chairs seemed to disappear. The seal broke. That sound, soft, almost fragile, echoed louder than any applause ever had. Inside were pages. Several of them. Carefully folded. Handwritten. The first line alone caused visible reactions across the room. If you're hearing this, then I hope you're not crying too much. There was a nervous ripple of laughter. A release of breath. It sounded exactly like him, gentle humor wrapped around emotional depth. But as the letter continued, something shifted. He didn't talk about awards. He didn't list accomplishments. He didn't mention fame. He spoke about quiet things. He wrote about sitting alone after long filming days, wondering if he had done enough. He admitted feeling pressure to meet expectations he sometimes set for himself. He thanked the fans who waited patiently during his quieter periods, saying their messages were read more often than anyone realized. And then came the line that froze the atmosphere. There's a truth I never shared, not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to protect someone. Protect someone. The words hung in the air like unanswered questions. The camera wasn't allowed inside, but insiders described the shift in body language. A co-star in the third row straightened abruptly. Someone near the back lowered their head. A close friend reportedly closed their eyes, gripping the program tightly. Who was he protecting? Was it a romantic partner the public never knew about? A family member? A colleague caught in controversy? Or something deeper, something connected to decisions he made behind the scenes? Speculation ignited instantly. But here's where it gets even more powerful. He didn't explain it. He moved on. That silence felt intentional. Almost strategic. Instead of exposing anyone, instead of revealing drama or conflict, he chose restraint. He left the sentence standing alone, raw, vulnerable, and incomplete. And that incompleteness is what made it explosive. Because sometimes what isn't said carries more weight than what is. As the host continued reading, the letter shifted tone again. He spoke about forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but forgiving oneself. He admitted to mistakes without naming them. He acknowledged moments I wish I had handled differently and thanked those who stayed beside him anyway. That's when people began connecting dots. Old interviews resurfaced later where he paused thoughtfully before answering certain personal questions. Clips where he deflected inquiries about relationships with a soft smile. Press conferences where tension flickered briefly between him and certain collaborators. Was the letter an indirect apology? Or a final shield? Then came the final page. The list. 5 names. No explanation. Just 5 individuals sitting in that very room. Witnesses described a visible reaction when the names were read aloud. One person covered their mouth. Another looked down instantly. A third reportedly stared straight ahead, expression unreadable. Beneath the names was a single line. "Thank them for me. They know why." And that was it. No dramatic reveal. No scandal spelled out. Just implication. After the reading ended, the room didn't erupt into whispers immediately. Instead, there was a thick silence, like everyone was processing the same question at once. What did they know? Were they connected by a shared secret? A past conflict? A decision that shaped his career? One insider later described the atmosphere as electric but restrained. It wasn't chaos. It was contemplation. The 5 individuals didn't leave quickly after the ceremony ended. They remained seated longer than anyone else. Quiet conversations unfolded between them. Nods were exchanged. Tears wiped discreetly. One of them, someone who had reportedly experienced tension with him years ago, was seen placing a hand over the list briefly before walking away. That single gesture fueled even more speculation. Was there unresolved conflict that had finally been acknowledged? The mystery deepened days later when one of the 5 posted a cryptic message online: "I forgive you. And I hope you forgave yourself." The internet exploded. Fans revisited old clips from drama promotions. Interviews where subtle tension could now be reinterpreted as emotional complexity. Scenes from behind-the-scenes footage where expressions lingered a second too long. Suddenly, the narrative of his career felt layered. Not scandalous. Human. And then there was the bracelet. Remember the worn leather bracelet his friend held up during the speech? That detail didn't fade. Fans quickly compiled years of photos showing him wearing it during filming breaks, charity events, airport appearances. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't designer. It was personal. When the friend said it was never really his, it felt like another puzzle piece. Some believe it belonged to one of the 5 names. Others think it symbolized a promise made long ago, perhaps to someone outside the industry entirely. But here's the chilling part. In the letter, he wrote a short sentence that many initially overlooked. Some things were borrowed, including courage. Borrowed courage. Was the bracelet a reminder of that courage? A token from someone who stood by him during a difficult chapter? When you place the bracelet beside the list of names, the letter about protection, and the final message about forgiveness, a pattern begins to emerge. This wasn't random. It was curated. He didn't expose secrets. He acknowledged them without damaging anyone. That level of intentionality suggests preparation, reflection, closure. And perhaps that's the most powerful revelation of all. He knew the weight of unanswered questions. Yet he chose to leave just enough to provoke thought, not scandal. He transformed what could have been gossip into introspection. The funeral wasn't chaotic because the secrets weren't explosive in the traditional sense. They were emotional. They were relational. They were human. Imagine sitting in that room, hearing your name read aloud, knowing the world will speculate, but also knowing he trusted you enough to include you in his final message. That's not drama. That's intimacy. And that's why the envelope remains the most talked about moment of the entire ceremony. Even weeks later, discussions continue. Was the truth about love? Was it about a career decision he made to protect someone else's reputation? Was it about stepping back from certain opportunities quietly? Or was it simply about vulnerability, the kind rarely shown in an industry built on image? One thing is certain. He controlled the narrative to the very end. Not by revealing everything, but by choosing what to leave unsaid. And in a world where oversharing dominates headlines, that silence feels revolutionary. So now I want to ask you, what do you think that truth was? Who do you believe he was protecting? Do you think the 5 names represent reconciliation, gratitude, or something more complicated? And what about the bracelet? Was it a symbol of love, friendship, or sacrifice? Drop your thoughts in the comments because your perspective might uncover a detail others missed. If this deep dive into the hidden layers of that unforgettable farewell kept you watching, make sure you like this video so more people can discover it. Share it with someone who loves unraveling mysteries. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that go beyond the headlines and into the emotional truths behind them. I'll be reading your comments, and in the next video, we might explore the most compelling theory you share. So tell me, what secret do you think was really revealed that day?